Thank you, Senator Fisher. Thank you to all of you. What a fun project this has been. Let me begin by saying to my wife and to my best friend, Melissa, to our kids and our bus mates, I don't know what the right word is for people you've lived on a bus with, but Corey and Alex and Breck, to the volunteers and to the staff who by partnership and parade walking and prayer made this team of volunteers and campaign staff the best campaign Nebraska's ever seen. And to my opponents, thank you for a great campaign. Democracy in America is a beautiful thing. We don't fight wars for succession when a king dies. A free people freely choose their leaders by debate and today by ballot. It has been a great privilege for our family to be a part of this process, and it is a tremendous honor for me to be chosen by the people of Nebraska to follow Mike Johans in the George Norris U.S. Senate seat. Thank you. This is simply the reason that we're here tonight, to say thank you to the voters of Nebraska. The farmers and the ranchers, the moms and the dads, the pastors and the teachers. Your vote has given me and our entire family a new calling, a vocation to serve Nebraska and to serve this great republic which we love. And for that, we are truly grateful. And in Nebraska, we show gratitude not just with our words, but with our service. And so I stand before you tonight to make three very specific pledges about how I intend to serve. First, I commit to be about the big challenges before us, for we do not have time for the small issues. Second, I commit to focus on our duties for the long term, not to be obsessed with short-term popularity. And third, we commit to celebrate the enduring American beliefs that unite us far more than the policy debates that sometimes divide us. For at our house, we are grateful for America's glorious past, and we remain optimistic about our shared future. As Melissa and I committed the very first day of this journey more than a year ago, we were not going to start thinking about commuting back and forth to Washington, D.C. just to fiddle while Rome burns. And that fire in the belly about the biggest challenges that face us has really been the story of this entire campaign. I'll be honest, we were a little bit ambivalent when we first started thinking about this. We have loved the life that we have had at the college, and we weren't looking for a new job. But ultimately, because of the crises that our country faces, we decided that we were going to run, but we were going to do it with one big condition. We were only going to run if we could go big on ideas, such that our campaign, which started with 3% name ID, would either catch fire or we were going to fail in spectacular fashion. And frankly, we were okay with that. One advisor to our campaign at the very beginning said, I don't know about this big ideas stuff, but I think that sounds like breaking your own ankles at the opening gun of a marathon. He said, in the cynical environment in which we live today, you can't possibly run a campaign like that based on town halls. We countered that the only reason anyone would conceivably think about living for 13 months on a smelly RV would be if you were going to boldly fight to talk about American renewal. And as time went on, the phrase "go big or go home" became a daily battle cry of this campaign, and you responded. We are so grateful to Nebraskans, not just because of the outcome of one passing election, but more fundamentally because of the ways you repeatedly told us again and again that you want politicians in Washington who know that it isn't sufficient for us just to trim around the edges. And if there is one great lesson of this election of 2014 tonight across the country, it is this, that the American people are desperate for real leadership. The American people are sending a new majority to Washington tonight. But they are not sending a new majority to Washington tonight for post office naming bills in January. Because it is no longer good enough for one party to use fake math to simply ignore the big problems we face. It's also not good enough for the other party, the party that I'm a part of, to simply be against whatever President Obama is for. And so my pledge tonight is that I want to stand with and engage and debate and wrestle together with the bigger issues that we face. And we are going to keep on living by the go big or go home motto for the next 6 years in the United States Senate. My second commitment relates to fighting for that next generation. Our children didn't get a chance to vote today, but I believe that you elected me to serve on their behalf as well, to propose real long-term solutions to the entitlement crisis we face, even in the face of short-term, near-term unpopularity sometimes. For doing the right thing for tomorrow's voters will not always seem popular today. Sadly, in our current politics, we are often obsessed with short-term popularity, with permanent political incumbency. But one of the great lessons that we've learned this last year plus on this stage and on this campaign trail is that Nebraskans are actually much more comfortable with principled disagreements than with constant finger-in-the-wind attempts to pander and be popular. Stated differently, we know that there are going to be times when we're going to take votes that many Nebraskans might disagree with me on. And I'm okay with that, but I want you to know, as my bosses, that I will always seek to vote my conscience, even if it might be against the stream for a time. And as importantly, I pledge that I will always try to explain why we voted the way we voted, even when we disagree, for I want to be accountable to you, for you are the bosses. Third and finally, I pledge that we will spend our time not merely debating policy, but more often celebrating the Nebraska work ethic and the enduring American beliefs that unite us. For when you listen to Nebraskans in our town halls, at church picnics, walking into memorial stadiums, as you tour people's businesses and farms and ranches, all Nebraskans know that the policy differences between right and left, between Republican and Democrat, are not nearly the most important issues we talk about as a people. What we need to remember is that there are far more things that unite us as a people, centering on our commitment to leave a great and free and opportunity-filled country to the next generation. I'm a rookie at this, but I believe one thing that we heard clearly in my family across the campaign trail, these 93 counties, is that Nebraskans believe too often political campaigns emphasize our policy differences at the expense of all of our shared ideals. And the American idea is not chiefly about some particular outcome for DC bureaucrats. It isn't about a particular tax rate. It isn't about a specific regulation that is rescinded or promulgated. It's rather a celebration of the value of life. It's a cherishing of our liberty, and it's an acknowledgement of the sources of our true happiness, the fount of which is not in the federal government. I'd also like to speak directly tonight to those of you who didn't vote for me. And to you I say, we didn't get you on our side this time, and that's okay. I hope to be a good senator for you too, for I want to spend the next 6 years, as Mike Johans has and as Deb Fisher does, working as hard as possible for you and your kids too, for that's what Nebraskans do. We occasionally argue about specific policy, but we agree about most of the things that really matter, protecting the American identity and reaffirming the Nebraska work ethic that made this state and this country great. We had a reporter with us at one point on the bus along the way, and my daughter Alex said to this reporter, "We want all the votes." You were right. That is what we wanted. That's how we want to communicate. We want to talk with and listen to everybody. We said on primary night that we might not win every vote, but we were going to seek to speak to every Nebraska heart. And that's why we made such a concerted effort in this campaign to reach out to Hispanic voters, by going to places like Lexington and South Omaha, not just talking, but spending a lot of time listening and learning. And you know what we found out? We found out that the paradigm created by the national media is really not reality. The way the national media reports, the only thing Hispanic voters and citizens supposedly care about is immigration policy. Well, that simply is not what we heard on front porches. We talked together about jobs, we talked together about getting our kids great educations, and we talked about trying to build opportunity for everybody. We talked about the American dream for everybody, of every race, of every ethnicity, of every national origin, of every socioeconomic class, and of both political parties. We tried to go to neighborhoods that Republicans don't usually go to, and we talked, and we listened, and we got to know each other. My party needs to get better at sending messengers who can stand on their principles and yet who also want to articulate a shared vision of the American dream for everyone. And so tonight I say, amigos, creo en el sueño americano. Juntos podemos crear un ambiente en cual todos tengan más oportunidades. That is the vision of America that I pledge to preserve and fight for, where all races and all ethnicities and both political parties are a necessary component to fighting to secure our shared future. Nebraskans know that what makes our country great is not its government, it's our people. Alexis de Tocqueville came to America in the 1830s to try to explain American dynamism, not only economically, but culturally to Europeans. And when he got here, he was supposedly going to write home about how government made us great. Instead, he ended up writing a 1,500-page book report on the Rotary. He wrote about American voluntarism. He talked about local community, about families, about town hall meetings. And he described how the greatness of America doesn't center on our central government, but it centers on a free people who build community together out of a heart of gratitude. Washington, D.C. does not make America great. In all of the time we spent on the campaign trail, I never once heard anyone tell us that they thought NASA could build a better iPhone than Apple. We never once had anyone say that they wished Hy-Vee operated more like the DMV. And no one ever said they wished the Sunday sermon sounded a little bit more like traffic school. Nebraskans know that bureaucrats in Washington can't make better healthcare decisions than doctors and nurses and patients and families that advocate for each other. The signers of our declaration didn't pledge their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor so that the federal government could helicopter parent a free people. America is a place where our people across the country accomplish far greater things for their families and community than any government could ever do. And our government, which obviously has some fundamentally important duties, and we need to say that more clearly, our government performs best when it is seeking to empower a free people so that they might flourish. And I have some good news. Nebraskans all across this state remain optimistic about the future of our country, but it is precisely because we believe that the most important things in life happen and are built here in Lincoln and in Alliance and in Chadron and in Norfolk and in Fremont, not in Washington, D.C. That's the good news. But insofar as there is some concern, insofar as there's anxiety amongst us, it consists in this. It's the fear that the government in Washington no longer cherishes the fundamental American idea, that our politicians and our civil servants are no longer sufficiently humble, but they believe that they can mandate how a free people in the flyover states ought to live their lives. And that's not what America is about. It's time for our leaders in Washington, D.C. to become optimistic again about us as a people, about what we can accomplish and build together in our local communities. We need to recover and rediscover and remember and reaffirm the greatness of that American spirit. For this freedom and the grand purposes to which it should be put is not transmitted through the bloodstream. It's not in our DNA. It's something that we teach. It's something that our kids learn. and we must constantly retell the American story to the next generation. And so we want to tell you, thank you for retelling the great story of America to us again and again and again across 93 counties for 13 months this year. And that American optimism is what I pledge to recite back to you and to be celebrating with you every single day for the next 6 years as your senator. Thank you.